If you've had colonoscopies that keep coming back normal, but you feel awful, listen up, because I'm going to say something that might surprise you and honestly make some people feel uncomfortable. And stick with me, because at the end, I'm going to share the real tests that give the right answers and what to do instead of colonoscopies. Colonoscopies are not a test of gut health. They never have been. Yet they're still the first intervention mentioned when you tell your GI doctor that you've got chronic constipation, cramping, bloating, or diarrhea that won't go away. Clean yourself out and let's stick a camera up there is the first intervention. And then you're told everything is normal after having one while you're still living with chronic diarrhea, bloating, cramping, and urgency. So let's talk about when colonoscopies actually became routine, what they do, and more importantly, what they don't do. Why they can actually damage the gut, and why so many people feel worse after having one. So colonoscopies became widely recommended in the late 1970s and early 80s as a screening tool for colon cancer. That's important. They were designed to look for tumors, polyps, ulcers, bleeding, structural abnormalities, in other words, visible pathologies. They were never designed to assess real gut health, things like the microbiome, digestion, inflammation at a functional level, or why somebody has chronic diarrhea, bloating, or IBS symptoms. But somewhere along the way, colonoscopies became positioned as this gold standard catch-all test, and that's where the problem starts. Here's the truth that shocks my clients every single day. A colonoscopy cannot tell you how well you're digesting food, if you're deficient in beneficial bacteria, if you have pathogenic bacteria that's driving your symptoms, if your fatty acids like butyrate and acetate are imbalanced, if your gut pH is off, if you've got yeast, parasites, or bacterial overgrowths, if lipopolysaccharides are triggering inflammation, if mycotoxins are damaging your gut lining. None of that shows up. And it doesn't show up on blood work, CT scans, endoscopies, or the basic stool tests that most doctors run. So when women say, I've had multiple colonoscopies and they didn't find anything, that's actually not shocking at all. Your problem isn't a tumor. It's not a blockage. It's not an ulcer. So of course nothing showed up. Now let's talk about the prep. The bowel prep used before a colonoscopy is extremely harsh. It's designed to flush the colon, and it does that by stripping the gut lining, disrupting the microbiome, causing massive shifts in bacteria, and increasing intestinal permeability. I've seen clients in my practice who actually felt totally fine before they had a routine colonoscopy, and then afterwards they were left with chronic diarrhea, cramping, urgency that absolutely wouldn't go away. And when they went back to the same doctor, the answer was, well, let's do another colonoscopy, see what we find in there. That's like pouring gasoline on a fire and wondering why it's still burning. And here's another very uncomfortable truth. Despite decades of routine colonoscopy screening, colon cancer rates have not gone down the way people expect, especially in younger populations. That alone should make us pause for a second, because if we're not addressing inflammation, dysbiosis, toxic burden, gut barrier breakdown, then we're not addressing root cause prevention. We're just looking for problem once they're already visible. I had 3 colonoscopies myself years ago before I knew what I know now. Every single one came back normal, yet I didn't feel normal. It wasn't until I ran the right functional testing that the real problems showed up. My fatty acids were completely out of balance. I was severely deficient in beneficial bacteria. I had a very significant overgrowth of some pathogenic bacteria called Proteus. My gut pH was way too alkaline. That whole combination is a recipe for disaster. And finally, everything made sense. These were all things that were never going to show up on a colonoscopy. This is why women are so confused. They're told your labs are normal, your colonoscopy was clear, there's nothing wrong in there, but their bodies are screaming otherwise. And the truth is that the testing was incomplete. If you're dealing with chronic diarrhea, bloating, cramping, urgency, IBS symptoms that won't go away, We need to look at your digestive markers, short chain fatty acids, beneficial versus pathogenic bacteria, keystone bacteria, inflammation patterns, your gut barrier integrity, toxins like mold and bacterial byproducts, because that's where the answers live. This isn't about saying colonoscopies are useless. They have a place for cancer screening, but they're not a gut health test. That's the problem. And it's my opinion that they shouldn't be done routinely just to screen for cancer. If you've been told nothing's wrong while you still feel miserable, you're not crazy. You've just been looking for answers in the wrong place. If this resonated with you, make sure you subscribe because I talk about the root cause of gut dysfunction that conventional medicine keeps missing. And if you've had a colonoscopy that showed nothing wrong, but you still don't feel right, that's not the end of the story. It's actually just the beginning.